Kakadosh, Boker Or, Masechet, Bava Metzia Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph 54A1. We're just going to start on Ungim Lamubet, where we're talking about that we always said that the Baalim always come before anybody else when they're going to redeem it from Hegdesh, because they always add a fifth. So ever since they're always adding a fifth, it's actually perfect, because that means Hegdesh is always going to get more. So therefore, says Rabbi Natashema, we have in a Braita, if the Baalim come and they say that they want to redeem it for 20 slaim, and everybody else says 20 slaim, obviously the Baalim come first, because they have to add a fifth. If somebody else comes and he says he wants 21, so therefore the person has to come, right? So therefore what happens? The Baalim have to give 26, because they already added the fifth, and they have to give 26. If the guys come and they say they want to give 22, so Baalim have to give 27. If the guys come and they say 20,
there's no chametz in Colombia, huh?
So says the Gemara, when we're talking about over here, the entire concept of that every single time they keep on adding, so they have to add. So for example, when he now comes and he says 24, so that means, again, one more time, every single time that the guy keeps on outbidding the original owners, so therefore they have to keep on picking up the price for the guy. So therefore, if he's going to say 24, so the Baalim have to give 29. The Baalim, right, if he says 25, the Baalim have to give 30. Because remember, they're always adding the fifth plus the original bid. But did you realize that they don't have to add a fifth on the upping of the bidding? They're only adding the fifth of the original amount. Meaning this guy was going to give 20. So he has to add a fifth. And how much is the fifth? Was it 4 or 5? You remember, was it milibar or miligav, outside or inside? So he's saying milibar, outside. So you have to give 25. But even though the other guy's outbidding him by 1, and keep on going up, he doesn't have to give a fifth on that as well. He's only giving the fifth on the original amount. But then he just has to put the same amount as the bid. Shema mina. That's how we finished yesterday. Fine. So says the Gemara, Ketanai. What does it mean now, Ketanai? V'yasav chamishito alav shehu v'chumsho hamisha. So it says, what does it mean v'yasav chamishito alav? That the keren should be 5 chalakim. And therefore, the chomesh is going to be a quarter of the keren. So it comes out that you're giving 5 quarters, which is milebar. These are the words of Rabbi Yoshiyah. Rabbi Yonatan comes and he says, Hamishito chomsho shel keren. The chomesh is going to be the hamishit of the keren. Fine. Ibailehu. They're going to ask the following question. Okay? Chomesh me'akev or eno me'akev? Does the chomesh me'akev or not? Meaning, right now we just said that you have to give the extra fifth. Why was it they didn't give the fifth on the Maaser Sheni? Are you allowed to eat it or not? Or does it impede? Right? That means you're not allowed to eat it inside of Jerusalem without adding the fifth first. So answers the Gemara, arba'a be'arba'a parik. Maaser, which is equal 4 zuzim, is going to be redeemed with 4 zuzim. And then you're going to come and you're going to add a fifth for the pidyon. Almas, you see from here, chomesh is not going to be ma'akev. It's like a chov. It's just like a debt. Or dilmar maybe arba b'chamisha parik, or maybe you have to do 4 out of 5, and chomesh is ma'akev. So therefore, basically the question is, do we say that the chomesh impedes? That means until you don't pay the chomesh, you cannot even eat the rest of it in Jerusalem? Or do I say it doesn't impede? It's just a chov. So if you redeemed it, you just come, you eat it, and okay, fine, you owe an extra fifth to the Gizbar, to the Bet HaMikdash. So Amar Ravina comes and he says, Tashema, we're going to bring a proof, right, from a Mishnah. A Mishnah says, Hademai. What is Demai? You're not sure whether they took off. Exactly. They don't know if they took off Tumot or Masrot. Yeah, En lo chomesh ve'en lo biur. It does not require a chomesh to add on a fifth, right, when you're coming and you're doing this. And there's no biur of Pesach, right, of the Shana Ravit and the Shvit. Okay? So says the Gemara, ha-keren yeshlo. But it does have the principle. My tama, what's reasoning? Keren de me'akev doraita. The keren is going to be me'akev doraita. Ita bedrabanan, and therefore it also is part of the Takana Chachamim. But chomesh, which is not me'akev doraita, Leta b'drabanan. We don't do it b'drabanan. Meaning like this. The mai was a safek. So it's a din drabanan. It's not doraita. It's not maaser sheni, which is doraita. It's a doubt. Did he take off masrot? Didn't take off masrot. He's in amaret, so I'm not sure. So that's drabanan. So therefore he comes and he says, the keren, which is me'akev doraita, that yes, that we're going to say that he's going to come, right? And he's going to, it's going to be me'akev doraita, and therefore the keren is there. So therefore also the rabbanan. But chomesh, which is not going to be me'akev doraita, so therefore it's not going to be noheg drabanan, meaning that for the, how do you call this? For the mai, you don't have to add a fifth. Because since the entire Damai is only the Rabbanan, they never instituted the fifth. Okay? So says the Gemara, what do we just say? This is machloket tanaim. What's the machloket exactly? Natanet keren velo natanet chomesh. If you gave the keren, not the chomesh. Rabbi Eliezer says, Yochal, you're allowed to eat it. Right? That means you're allowed to eat it outside of Yerushalayim. Okay? Rabbi Yeshua says, Lo Yochal, you're not allowed to eat it out of Yerushalayim. Amar bi says, Rabbi, Nidin divrei Rabbi Eliezer, it appears to me the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, Shabbat during Shabbat. Why? Because remember that on Shabbat it's going to be a different halacha. So he comes and he says, it appears to me the words of Rabbi Eliezer that the pirot are going to be eating, right, permitted to eat outside of Yerushalayim on Shabbat. But like Rabbi Yeshua during the weekday, because since on the weekday, obviously, right, the pirot are going to be asur until you add the fifth. Meaning during the weekday you could add a fifth, so don't eat it until you add the fifth. But on Shabbat you can't add anything anyway. So then we're going to permit you to eat it. Right, even though you didn't take it off yet. From the fact that we said that it appears the words of Rabbi Eliezer b'Shabbat, miklal de plige. So it comes out that they actually argue. Yeah, what does that mean exactly that they come and they argue? So it says, right, afilu b'chol, even during the weekday they argue. Meaning, if I'm going to tell you that it appears the halacha like John Paul on Sunday and the halacha like David on Shabbat, it's mashma that they both argue. Right, even on Shabbat and even during the weekday. So therefore, that's what we're saying over here. So he says, "Mikal de pligea filu bechol." So it's mashma that they argue even on chol that Rabbi Eliezer is going to permit even during the weekday. It comes out that they argue even on Shabbat. So is that not the svarat? That Rabbi Eliezer holds that a chomesh is not going to be me'akev, and Rabbi Yeshua holds that the chomesh is going to be me'akev. I mean, the machloket is all around the board. Whether on Shabbat, whether on Chol, me'akev or no me'akev. So Amar Rav Papa says Rav Papa, yeah, lo. That's not the explanation. Yeah, it's not the explanation. Dechule alma, because according to everybody, Homesh lo me'akev. Homesh is not going to be me'akev. But here we're suspecting to negligence. The more savar chashinim shiuta, basically, do you suspect that there's going to become a negligence on and off? Which means that maybe you're not going to give the chomesh at the end, and therefore are they going to suspect for that or not? Meaning that we wanted to find out: are you going to start suspecting for negligence being done or not being done? So Amar Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan, Hakol modim be'ekdesh shechilel. Everybody agrees that if you redeem the ekdesh and you do not add the chomesh, hilel, yeah, it's going to permit it completely, and it's not going to be asud even to Rabbanan, and we're not going to suspect for it. Because Gizbarin are always looking for it in the shuk. Meaning like this: to do the Maaser Sheni, nobody's running after you for the money. Sorry, so since nobody's running after you for the money, we're going to start having a machloket. Do we suspect for pshiuta, not pshiuta? Fine. Here, though, since the Gizbarim are always running after you to collect the money, we're not going to suspect for pshiuta because we know there's people after you. And since people are running after you, don't worry about it. They're going to make sure they get their money. Understand? These Gizbarim, they're good. Yeah? They're very, very important. That's basically that's one of the most important rules, by the way. Right? The treasurers and all those things of the synagogues. Some people, they only want to come and they don't even, they want to be the good guy. But the Gizbarim, they have to be on top of the people in order to make sure that they pay the pleasure. You understand? Fine. Be'ekdesh lo plige, says the Gemara in Ekdesh. What? They're not going to be arguing. Yeah. So he says Be'ekdesh is not going to be a machloket. He says, Vatanya, we learned in the Braita, Natan et keren. Velo natan et chomesh. If you give the keren and you don't give the chomesh, Rabbi Eliezer says Hilel. V'hachamim omerim lo Hilel. So the machloke between Hachamim and Rabbi Eliezer, whether it's a good chilul or not. So it comes out that there is a machloket, right? Even by Ekdesh. So Amar Rabbi says Rabbi, meaning Divrei Rabbi Eliezer be'Ekdesh, and Divrei Chachamim b'Maaser. It appears to me the words of Rabbi Eliezer and Ekdesh that we're not going to suspect for any foul play or anything, because either the Gizburim are going to collect it. And it appears to me the words of Hachamim by Maaser. Okay? Mid'amar, from the fact that it says, right? Midin de Rabbi Eliezer be'Ekdesh, we call the Pali, afilu b'Maaser. It's mashma they argued in Maaser. And from the fact that it says Midin de Chachamim Maaser, it's mashma that they argue also in Ekdesh. Meaning that it's always the machloket. So leitmar hachidmar, but rather this is the way that you have to read it. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Hakol modim b'Shabbat be'Ekdesh shahilel." Everybody agrees on Shabbat by Hekdesh that it was a good chilul. Chada diktiv, one because it's written v'karata la Shabbat oneg. Yeah, karata Shabbat oneg. And another reason is because tovin oto, all v'gizbanim tovin oto b'shul. So two different reasons. Since the Chachamim didn't want to prohibit on Shabbat because of oneg Shabbat, so since Shabbat is an oneg, they permitted you to benefit from it. They didn't want to come and start prohibiting you things, right? When be'emet technically could be permitted because it's an oneg. They don't want to start telling you you're not allowed to eat this, you're not allowed to eat that. You understand? Meaning that here again, we're not going to start suspecting that you're not going to pay it. So therefore, number one, the karata Shabbat oneg. So therefore, they want you to make sure to benefit on Shabbat. Maybe you're going to become Shia and you're not going to do it. Okay. Next. Amar Rami Bar Chama. Says Rami Bar Chama. Hare Amru. They said, Hekdesh eno mitchalel ala karka. Hekdesh is not going to be mitchalel on ground. The Rahman Amar, the pasuk says, "V'natana kesef bekamlo," which means chumsho ma'u sheicholel ala karka. Meaning the principle cannot be redeemed on karka, but it says you have to give money. Money and not karka. But what about the chomesh? Chomesh you could give from karka, or it also has to be money. So says the Gemara, truma. When we're talking about truma, that a zar ate truma b'shogeg. Yeah, meaning a stranger. He ate truma b'shogeg. Ena mishalemet ela min chulin. You have to pay chulin, right? Not meaning from perot chulin, not from money. The Rahman Amar, the Torah said that the into kodesh, davar ra'oi liot kodesh, which is going to be the fruits, not money. Chumsha ma'ushi shalem min chulin. But what about the chomesh? Can you pay not from perot chulin? A third din. Yeah, maaser. It says maaser en mitchalelin shel ala simon. You're not going to be mitchalel on a simon maaser. But the Torah says it's tarta kesed yadecha. Lelabo kol דבר שיש עליו צורה. חומשו מהו שיחלל מהסימון. Can you do the chomesh on the simon? Basically, what we're trying to say is that we have certain halachot on the keren, on the principle. Does it also apply on the fifth or not? That's the entire question. So that was the question, whether it's talking about maaser, whether it's talking about truma, whether it's talking about hekdesh. These are all the questions. So the Gemara is going to answer. So they came to the Rava. When he said, the pasuk says, alav. Whenever it mentions the concept of a fifth, it says alav. Alav lerabot chumsho kimoto. So the same answer for all three. The chomesh is always like the principle. So whatever you say by the principle, say by the chomesh. Okay, and we're going to bring a proof. Amar Ravina says, we also learned in the Mishnah. Hagonev truma velo achalav. You stole truma, but you didn't actually eat it. Meshalem tzume kefel, dmei truma. You have to pay kefel. And what is the kefel? Dmei truma, which means that you have to actually pay money, damim, which is money, and you don't have to pay dafka perot. Number two, also, the damim is dmei truma, which means that what it's going to be equal the value in the shuk. Achalav, but if you ate it, meshalem shne kranim. You have to pay twice the keren. One keren for the keren of the geneva, and one keren for the truma that you eat b'shogeg. And then you also have to pay a chomesh for eating truma b'shogeg. Keren v'chomesh min chulin. The keren v'chomesh is going to be from the chulin. And keren v'dmet truma, right? And also you have to pay keren, which has to be dmei truma. Shema mina chumsho kimoto. So from here we actually bring a proof that the chomesh is like it. Shema mina. Nun daled amud bet. So Daf Nun daled amud bet 54b. Amar Rava. Rava comes and he says, Kabe gezel, by gezel, when we're talking about somebody that stole, and he was kafar v'nishba l'sheker. It's written, v'hamishitav Yosef alav. It's in Rabim, Lashon Rabim. Right? So therefore, by gezel, it's written, he has to add a fifth. Okay? Here, obviously, we're talking about that he stole and he was kafar v'nishba l'sheker. You remember, he swore falsely. Because if he stole and he was caught, so he's going to pay double. Kefel. Okay? So here it says, v'hamishitav Yosef alav. So says the... Yeah, says the Mishnah, Natan lo et hakeren v'nishba l'chomesh. If he paid the keren and then he swears on the chomesh, there's mostly chomesh on chomesh. He has to pay a chomesh on the chomesh. Okay? Ad sheitmaet hakeren. Until the chomesh is already going to be chayav, is going to be that there's not going to be until there's no keren. Chomesh shaveh pruta. Less than shaveh pruta. But kfira on less than shaveh pruta is patur from chomesh. Okay? Meaning, because since he paid back the keren. But the fifth, he lied about the fifth. Yes. Okay. Kabei trumakti, by trumat written, V'ishki yochal kodesh mishkav yatzav chamishito alav. Utznan it says, Ochel truma b'shogeg b'shalem keren v'chomesh. If you ate truma b'shogeg, you're going to pay keren v'chomesh. Echad ochel v'echad shoteh. Doesn't matter whether you ate truma, you drank truma, v'chadasach, or you anointed your body with truma. Echad truma teorah, echad truma. Doesn't matter whether truma teorah or teomea. Meshalem chumsha v'chumsha dechumsha. You're going to pay a fifth, right, and a fifth of the fifth, which means that if it was given as the keren in the chomesh kedino, and it becomes truma, so you're going to keep on paying the fifth. V'ilu gabe maaser, by maaser, it's not written. Lo michtav ktiv. It's not written chamishito Yosef alav. Velo mitna tana velo ibaye bailan. So therefore, we didn't ask it. We didn't have a safek on it at all. Kabe ekdesh, it's written. V'ima magdish yigal. If the person that consecrated it, he's going to redeem the house, right? V'yasach chamishitav ala lekecha. So he's going to add a fifth on the kesef el kecha. Utznan was written in Mishnah. Podet ekdesho musif chomesh. You have to add a fifth. Chumsha tnan. Chumsha de chumsha lo tnan. We only learned the fifth, not a fifth on the fifth. So what's halacha then? Right? Do you have to add on the fifth on the fifth or not? So by Truma, it's written v'yasaf. And Gabe Kodesh, it's also written v'yasaf. So the extra vav, v'yasaf, and he adds. So says the Gemara, or maybe by Truma, it's written v'yasaf. If you take off the vav of v'yasaf and you put it on chamishito, so then it becomes chamishitav. And Gabe Ekdesh, it's written v'yasaf chamishit. So even though you did take off the vav of v'yasaf, you had to put it on chamishit. So sof have a chamishito. So it's like chamishito. And therefore, there's no remez that you have to add on extra fifths. It's only 1/5. So says the Gemara, v'teipuklei. So why don't you just learn it from Davale Hekdesh Sheni? That this is going to be considered Hekdesh Sheni. V'amei says Hekdesh Rishon. When we're talking about Hekdesh Rishon, Mosif Chomesh al Hekdesh Sheni. Right? He says on the Hekdesh Rishon you're going to be Mosif Chomesh, but on Hekdesh Sheni you're not going to be Mosif Chomesh. Meaning, if you're going to come and you're going to redeem it again, you're not going to redeem it. You remember Hekdesh Rishon was you redeemed it. If you redeem the redemption, that's called Hekdesh Sheni. So on that you don't add a fifth. It's only the first time around that you add a fifth when you're redeeming it. So Elmaleh Rav Papa says Rav Papa to Ravina, Hachi Amarava, this is what Rava says, Chomesh ketchilat Hekdesh dami. Chomesh is considered like the Tchilat Hekdesh, which means that you start again. You start again the process. So therefore, you would have to add a fifth again. Remember, Hekdesh Sheni, you don't have to add a fifth again because you already added the fifth the first time around. But here, it goes back to step one. So therefore, you do have to add a fifth when you redeem this about the Chomesh. Okay? So, my Haviala. So, what's the answer then? Amarav Tuviyum Mishmei Dabai Markad. The pasuk says V'yasar chamishi kesver kacha makish. Yeah, a lot of people here they like a kesh. So the makish chumsho lekesef erko. Right? The chomesh, so the kesef of the erko. Just like kesef erko, you have to add a fifth. So to the kesef chomesh, you have to add a fifth. Gufa Amar Yeshua Levi says of Yeshua ben Levi. Al Hekdesh Rishon, you have to add a fifth. Hekdesh Sheni, you don't add a fifth. Amar Rava, it says Rava, what's the reason Rishon ben Levi? It says in the pasuk, Amakra, ve'im hamagdish yigal beto hamagdish velo matpis. Hamagdish is the one that's actually doing the Hekdesh, so he had to add on the fifth, but not the matpis, which is the podeh from that. So he doesn't have to add on the fifth. So basically, no, the first one did. So Tani Tana Kamed Rabbi Lazar, so they turn in front of Rabbi Lazar. If in the Behemat Me'ah they're going to redeem it, just like a Behemat Me'ah is miyuchedet, shetchilata ekdesh v'kula l'shamayim, that at the beginning it's going to be ekdesh, and not because of the chilul, obviously, and everything goes to the shamayim. Because here he says that if it's a stomach ekdesh of a Behemat Me'ah, it goes to bedek habayit. Because obviously they can't bring it as a korban, because it's a Behemat Me'ah. There's a problem of milah. There's going to be a problem of milah. So Elmaleh Rabbi Lazar, it says Rabbi Lazar to the Tana, I understand everything goes to the bedek habayit, makes sense. Because they have a chelek, right? So there's no milah. But tchilat ekdesh miutemayim. Tchilat ekdesh would be be'me'ala. So ekdesh leba milah. He says what? Only the beginning of ekdesh has milah, but not at the end of the ekdesh. What does that mean? So says the Gemara, we're talking about the Chomesh. Dilma linyan Chomesh kamarta, like Rabbi Shua ben Levi, which means that the second we're talking about the Chomesh is only the first time around, not the second time around. So he told him, yes, hachi kamani. That's exactly what I said as well. Okay?